With federal aid, we will begin a massive recovery effort to clean up and begin to rebuild the affected areas of Maui. We will rebuild Lahaina.
Coming up next on Scripps News Live, Hawaii's governor outlining the work ahead after deadly wildfires. We'll have the latest from Maui and the upcoming visit from President Biden.
Many of us here in Los Angeles felt that shaker, and it does. You just kind of shake your head and go, okay, what else is coming our way?
Parts of Southern California dealing with an earthquake on top of flooding from Hurricane Hilary. We'll have a live update from San Diego after historic rainfall in the region. And New York taking steps to address an ongoing crisis inside the facility set to house thousands of asylum seekers. What officials say still needs to happen with the federal government. And former President Donald Trump saying that he is skipping the first Republican debate. We'll have the reaction from the Hill, plus the deadline that he's now facing over his legal trouble in Georgia. Scripps News Live begins right now. Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Good to see you on this Monday. I'm Veronica Cruz. At this hour, 850 people still missing in Maui after devastating fires destroyed the historic city of Lahaina and other areas earlier this month. More than 100 people have died in the fires, and the majority have not yet been identified. Hawaii Governor Josh Green says the remains of some of the people who died in the fires may never be recovered. He says the state is now thoroughly investigating what happened.
I've ordered a comprehensive assessment of every detail of our response to the fires on Maui. We will get to the bottom of exactly how the fire started, how our emergency procedures and protocols need to be strengthened, and how we can improve our defenses to protect us in the future.
Meanwhile, President Biden and the First Lady are visiting the island today. They're meeting with survivors and first responders and will be given a tour of the affected areas. National correspondent Maritza Giorgio is live for us in Maui right now. Maritza, what can you tell us?
Yeah, well, good afternoon to you, Veronica. President Biden has said that he not only will meet with first responders and survivors, but he's also going to be able to see the devastation firsthand to really get a better sense of what it's going to take for the town of Lahaina to recover. And Senator Brian Schatz has talked about that too, that you think you know how bad it is, and then you get here and you see the devastation for yourself and the wide scope of the devastation. You can just imagine how terrifying it must have been that day on August 8th when that fire ripped through. And Senator Schatz has said, you know, President Biden will feel that grief. He will feel that emotion just looking at the scene. But he is also coming to a lot of questions from the citizens here on Maui, mostly about how his administration is going to be able to help them moving forward. We've seen a lot of people post questions for the president ahead of his visit, including, you know, how will his administration help workers directly with relief moving forward, similar to what they did in COVID, so that they can just pause tourism and focus on helping their community and focus on the grief that they're experiencing, and also what they're going to do similar to COVID as well, with things like subsidizing mortgages and rent repayments and putting a moratorium on foreclosures. So a lot of questions here, and you know, many of these survivors, they received a check for $700, but that doesn't go very far on the island of Maui. Things are very, very expensive here. A lot of people have concerns about moving forward, how they're going to survive, especially, you know, like we talked about, tourism is basically paused. It is empty here. So many scenes like Kaanapali Beach, where you normally would see so many tourists, it's empty right now. So how are these small businesses elsewhere not directly affected by the fire? How will they survive moving forward? So a lot of those questions will be pointed to the president today.
All right. Maritza Giorgio reporting in Maui. Maritza, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed there. So Maui, as you well know, has a long road ahead. Monetary donations will be crucial for survivors struggling to piece their lives back together again. Scripps News is supporting those relief efforts through the Scripps Maui Wildfire Relief Campaign. All you have to do is scan the QR code that you see right there on the bottom of your screen if you want to help. In the meantime, on the West Coast, Hilary has been officially downgraded to a post-tropical storm But many states aren't out of the woods just yet. Forecasters warning life-threatening flash floods will continue in parts of the southwestern United States, and the threat of flooding looms as far north as Oregon and Idaho. Scripps News national correspondent James Packard is on the ground for us right now in La Jolla and joins us now live. James, I understand that parts of Mexico, Baja California really bore the brunt of this storm. What are you seeing right now there in La Jolla?
Yeah, we're seeing the starts of cleanup here, Veronica. Take a look at this massive eucalyptus tree here in La Jolla that came down across this neighborhood road, and look at the power it took to uproot all of that underneath the sidewalk and bring it down across this road. And this thing is massive. I mean, this was no small gust of wind that brought this puppy down. We're talking about a 51-mile-an-hour gust just north of us here. The max gust that was recorded overnight last night as this storm blew through. Now these crews have a lot of work to do to get this thing chopped up, get it loaded into the wood chipper over here, and get it moved out of the way so they can reopen this road and get people moving again here in La Jolla. And this is not the only tree that came down like this. We had reports of numerous trees here in La Jolla coming down as these massive wind gusts moved through, and there were also gusts up further east into the hills, and of course all that rain that came down in Palm Springs. As far as the more urban areas in concentrated portions of San Diego, up in Los Angeles, they didn't get it quite as bad as they could have, but certainly this is the kind of cleanup that we're seeing today, Veronica, in parts of Southern California where some isolated wind gusts really did some damage.
Yeah, and it's funny, James, because you don't necessarily always see this happen in Southern California. We don't really know Southern California as an area that gets hit with hurricanes. But what are folks dealing with in terms of the cleanup? Are there also flooding issues, and are you seeing folks dealing with power outages as well?
Yeah, that is something we've seen. Tens of thousands of people who were in the dark. The nice news is that because this storm moved through so fast, crews were able to get back out very quickly and start restoring that power rather fast. One of the concerns was that this would be a sustained event and that over the course of several days there would be so much flooding and winds that crews wouldn't be able to quickly get that power back on. But officials are being very clear with people that they need to not just treat this as an over and done event, that there is still the danger of potentially down power lines that could still be live. So if you see a down power line anywhere, you need to stay far away from it and make sure it's reported to 311. And also to make sure that people are aware that flooding could still occur. There was a portion of some of the alpine areas near Palm Springs that got 13 inches of rain. 13 inches, more than a foot of rain in less than a 24-hour period. That's a lot anywhere, but especially in a desert that is not used at all to that level of rain. So all that runoff has to go somewhere, and in low-lying areas, particularly near the beach, where all that water ends up eventually, people need to be aware that flooding could still occur, even though the skies are clearing up and the wind has calmed down.
Yeah, James Packard reporting live for us there in La Jolla, California. James, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. So Hillary's remnants are also moving through Nevada. Clark County, where Vegas is located, has declared a state of emergency due to the potential for strong winds and a lot of rain. Rachel Moore with Scripps News Las Vegas takes a closer look at the conditions right now.
Here in Las Vegas, we are under a flood watch through most of the day. We've already seen severe flooding in neighborhoods across the valley, as well as on our Las Vegas Strip. Some areas getting nearly an inch and a half of rain. And just to give you some perspective of how much rain that is, the rain that we're getting today and over the weekend is the amount of rain that we would usually see in an entire year. And that's why a lot of folks have been coming to this parking lot that I'm standing in this morning. Las Vegas Fire and Rescue, they have put out a pile of dirt and a bunch of sandbags for homeowners to fill up and protect their homes. In neighborhoods, we've seen floodwaters so high sidewalks are disappearing. The tires of cars are covered. And even in our mountain area, residents are now under a boil water notice because of heavy rain and high winds. Overnight flooding in Kyle Canyon damaging their water system. It's leaking right now. And we're also getting notice of power outages across the Las Vegas Valley. More than 1,000 homes have lost electricity, and right now crews are working to restore the power in several neighborhoods. Our meteorologist Justin Bruce is forecasting the rain to be on and off today. Again, we are under that flood watch until 5 o'clock this evening. Reporting in Las Vegas, I'm Rachel Moore.
FEMA is running out of disaster relief funding as it continues to respond to costly natural disasters. Money could run out within a matter of weeks, and this news comes as the National Hurricane Center says tropical storm conditions are expected in South Texas this week from a post-tropical cyclone. President Biden requesting an additional $12 billion in funding for disaster relief efforts from Congress. FEMA is saying it has a plan in place to make sure it has enough cash flow to support any life-saving operations, but it will need Congress to step in sooner rather than later.
We will continue to push. We will push projects, recovery projects into the next fiscal year, so we always have enough money to support any of the immediate life-saving needs. So we will take measures to ensure that there is always going to be enough funding to continue to support immediate responses to these types of severe weather events.
Congress is on summer recess until early September. Lawmakers have until September 30th to pass a number of spending bills, including more disaster relief funding to avert a government shutdown. Still to come on Scripps News Live, former President Trump facing a deadline this week to turn himself in after being indicted on multiple charges in Georgia. What he's saying about the case. But first, asylum seekers in New York now being moved to Randall's Island inside the facility housing them and the next steps to address the crisis.
We found over 14,000 bridges around the country have been in poor condition for over a decade. Does that surprise you?
Scripps News investigates decaying bridges in America. Tuesday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
Hey, I'm inside the bank.
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank and get Dave, the banking app.
What?
There's an easier way.
Oh, she going to jail.
You can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
There shouldn't be a stigma around talking about mental health or taking medication for your anxiety if that's what you need to feel better. And that's something I know firsthand. That's why I trust Hers. They help women access quality online mental health care anytime through the Hers app. Get started today at forhers.com.
If you're living with diabetes, this is the sound that could change your life.
Great news for people living with diabetes. Now you can wear a continuous glucose monitor and eliminate routine finger sticks. The days of repeated, painful finger sticks are over.
Call 800-820-9953.
If you use insulin daily to manage your condition, a continuous glucose monitor could help you control your diabetes and reduce or eliminate those painful finger sticks. If you have Medicare or private insurance, US Med can deliver a CGM system right to your door. And if you qualify, there may be little or no cost to you. Shipping is free and will even bill your insurer directly. Call now to get your continuous glucose monitoring system so you can take control of your diabetes and get back to enjoying life.
Call 800-820-9953. That's 800-820-9953.
One way to avoid expensive car repair bills is to be a race car driver. The other is endurance.
Endurance saved me more than $7,000.
Without endurance, breakdowns can cost thousands. With endurance, you're covered.
Endurance covers nearly every car on the road. Plus,
you pick the mechanic you trust.
Act now for $300 off any plan, plus a year of elite benefits and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Call 1-855-588-2580 now.
Wounded Warrior Project has been with me every step of my journey.
Aaron, how you doing, bud? With experiences that help me realize that I'm not alone.
And specialized programs that give me the tools to train my body and mind.
Now, it's possible for me to get back out there.
To get out of my comfort zone and try new things.
To build and be part of a community that supports other warriors.
It's possible to get the help I need for me and my family.
I got my confidence back. I'm setting goals and I'm achieving them.
It's possible to feel understood, whether it's day one or 20 years down the road, they've got your back.
And as each warrior's needs evolve, Wounded Warrior Project is adapting to meet them.
Because when we pull together,
it's possible to go further than you ever imagined.
New York City's overcrowding crisis involving incoming migrants has long been at a breaking point. Over the weekend, the city began housing people again on Randall's Island. The city set up a migrant center there last fall, but it closed after the number of arrivals dropped temporarily. But officials reopened a new relief center there yesterday. Scripps News national correspondent Axel Tercios joins us now from Randall's Island with the details. Axel?
Veronica, so there are a total of 6 tents. Those tents will house single adults and married adults. The project was completely funded by the state of New York, and it will cost taxpayers more than $20 million a month. So the city says the tents have capacity for up to 3,000 people. Originally, the city said that the tents will have capacity for up to 2,000 people, but since the city have seen the influx of migrants nonstop here in New York, so they decided to expand the project and create more space to house more asylum seekers. So the city opened the tents this Sunday, and it took its first 150 men. And they are also saying that for transportation, the men will have access to buses provided by the city that will be able to transport them between Randall's Island, the island of Manhattan, and Queens for any of those who want to travel to these places to look for immigration assistance and guidance. So the first step when asylum seekers arrive in the tent facilities, they will be met at a medical intake center. Then they will be paired to a caseworker and then will be provided a dorm. But there's also strong opposition to the project, Veronica, and this is because the tents are built on soccer fields that are used for youth in the city. And this is people related to the mayor's office that said that taking these spaces away from the youth is basically putting their lives in danger, because they say that they use these spaces to keep these kids off the streets. So far, the city has received more than 100,000 asylum seekers since the spring of 2022, and the city's already still taking care of more than 58,000, almost 60,000, Veronica.
Now, Scripps News national correspondent Axel Tercios reporting for us there. So Texas has started to reposition a controversial floating barrier close to the southern border. It's all according to new court documents filed by the Justice Department. And it says excavators and workers were seen moving a concrete anchor in the Rio Grande River. It comes days after a separate court filing claimed 80% of the border buoys were in Mexican territory. DOJ attorneys said they had no advance notice that work would be done on the barrier. Texas deployed the buoys in early June, and the Justice Department sued last month, demanding that they be removed. An injunction hearing is now set for Tuesday. Still to come on Scripps News Live, there's been a significant step regarding the gender pay gap in the United States, what those wages look like right now, and COVID cases on the rise again. The latest numbers and how you can keep your risk low with fall right around the corner. We'll be right back.
Law enforcement calls it house stealing, and cyber thieves transfer the title to your home out of your name to take out fraudulent loans or even sell it. How do you protect yourself? Get triple lock protection from Home Title Lock. Our triple lock protection gives you 1, 24/7 monitoring, 2, urgent alerts of any title changes, and 3, title restoration help from our team of experts. Do you know if your title is safe? Check your title status now at HometitleLock.com.
If you, like many people, are covered by both Medicare and your state's Medicaid, here's something important to know. Now you could get even more health benefits than you already have. It's the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan. To find out if you or someone you care about is eligible, it's easy. Call now to talk with us. We can explain it all and answer your questions. Medicaid gives you benefits, and Medicare gives you some too. But a Dual Complete Plan can add even more benefits and features compared to original Medicare. You'll have lots of doctors and hospitals to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions, including brand names. And depending on where you live, you could enjoy other benefits too, like more dental care and rides to and from your doctor or pharmacy. Most plans even give you up to $300 a month to help pay for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and new this year, utility bills. And best of all, with this plan, there's no extra cost to you. Remember, if you have Medicare and Medicaid, chances are you could get a Dual Complete Plan. So call now to talk with us. Our agents are available to help. We know healthcare can be confusing, United Healthcare can straighten things out. And with over 40 years of experience, you can count on us to be there for you. With a dual complete plan, you could have a wide choice of doctors to choose from. $0 copays on all covered prescriptions. Help paying for covered over-the-counter products, groceries, and utility bills. More dental coverage, too, all at no extra cost. If you have both Medicare and Medicaid, you may be eligible for dual complete. So call the number on your screen now to see if you're eligible or to enroll. There's more for you with the United Healthcare Dual Complete Plan.
We found over 14,000 bridges around the country have been in poor condition for over a decade. Does that surprise you?
After uncovering thousands of bridges decaying towards disaster, U.S. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg reacts to our findings.
Congress after Congress, administration after administration, we didn't see the kind of major investment that was really needed.
Scripps News investigates decaying bridges in America, Tuesday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News Tonight.
For many Americans, the COVID pandemic is a thing of the past, especially since the national COVID emergency officially ended in May. But for many others, the illness is still very real. Now, as of last Friday, the CDC says more than 10,000 people had been admitted to hospitals, and that is up more than 14% from the week before. And there were 453 deaths during the same time period. Now, COVID may not be the threat it once was, but it is yet again on the rise. Earlier, I spoke with Dr. William Schaffner, a CDC advisor and professor of medicine at Vanderbilt University Medical Center's Division of Infectious Diseases, and we talked about staying safe with a new variant on the rise and what you need to know about vaccinations. So we know that official guidelines for COVID have ended. They ended back in May. How should we be thinking about dealing with COVID now, especially in terms of masking and vaccines?
Well, all of the people who are in high-risk groups, older people, people with underlying chronic illnesses, those who are immune compromised, and people who are pregnant, get out your mask if you're going indoors, if you're traveling, if you're in crowds. That extra layer of precaution, and be very determined that once the booster becomes available, take advantage of it.
Well, tell us more about this booster. I mean, what do we know about vaccines, boosters as we head into the fall? Because we know that government funding has run out, doctor. So where do people now get tested? Where do they find the vaccines? Because I would imagine there are still a lot of people out there who don't have health insurance, and they were relying on these drive-through clinics or these pop-up clinics, if you will.
Well, that will be something of a challenge. We want to continue to have this vaccine available to absolutely everyone for whom it's recommended come the fall. And there will be programs in place such that people who are underinsured or have no insurance can still avail themselves of the vaccine. For example, in public health clinics and the like. And that's the sort of thing that will be announced locally through your local TV stations, your local newspapers. So stay alert. It's very, very important. You don't want disparity once again to creep into this problem, because people who are disadvantaged, are in racial, ethnic, linguistic minorities, people who are rural, we want them to continue to have access to the vaccine.
We do apologize for some of the audio difficulties we were having there, but Dr. Schaffner does add that people with very young children, older adults should still mitigate the risk by masking up and taking precautions of planning to go into a crowded space this fall. In the meantime, new research shows that COVID-19 raised patients' risks of high blood pressure. Scientists monitored thousands of COVID and flu patients from 2020 to 2022, and they had no history of hypertension. 6 months after they were treated, 1 in 5 developed high blood pressure. It was twice as likely in people who had COVID than in people who had the flu or other respiratory illnesses. A recent FDA-approved test is offering an early warning for childbearing women. It helps predict preeclampsia, a blood pressure disease that affects about 1 in 25 pregnancies in the United States. National correspondent Evie Ramos has more now on the condition and this groundbreaking test.
Federal health officials have recently approved a blood test that can identify a deadly condition in some pregnant women. Preeclampsia is the leading cause of disability and death among childbearing women. The condition causes high blood pressure and can lead to organ damage. It usually begins after 20 weeks of pregnancy. A new test can detect if someone will develop the condition within 2 weeks. Those who get a positive result may have to deliver their babies early. Medical experts say symptoms of the disease include headaches, blurry vision, and proteins in the urine.
We have thought for a while, and I remember this from residency, that there's a protein that comes from the placenta that may actually cause preeclampsia. And I think we are actually now realizing that, because the tests that we're talking about today actually test for 2 different proteins that come from the placenta.
Preeclampsia disproportionately affects Black women. They're 3 times more likely to die from the condition than their white counterparts. Black women are also more likely to suffer kidney damage or lose their babies. The condition may have played a role in the recent death of Olympic star Tori Bowie. She was found dead in her home 3 months ago. An autopsy report said she died from childbirth complications. The 32-year-old was 8 months pregnant at the time. Doctors say it's still not clear why cases like hers are mostly seen in the Black community.
Black women are 60% more likely to experience preeclampsia. We do think that there are some socioeconomic factors that may also play into that, but we really don't know, which again is why it's so important that we have a test like this so we can predict who is going to develop preeclampsia.
As of now, there are no treatments to prevent preeclampsia, but some data suggests low-dose aspirin could slightly reduce one's risk of developing the disease.
That was Evie Ramos reporting there for us. So blue light glasses may not do anything to help the strain on your eyes after all. Researchers took a closer look at existing data on blue light filtering lenses and found that blue light glasses don't protect your retina or help with getting to sleep at night. There are others and less expensive ways to avoid eye strain, including sitting an arm's length away from your computer screen, increasing your computer's text size, taking regular breaks from looking at your screen, and going to your annual eye exam. Doctors are making waves in finding a treatment to help restore eyesight in the blind. A recently published study shows doctors using a stem cell transplant on an Alabama man. They took a small biopsy from a healthy eye, they grew it, and then they transplanted the cells into an injured eye. The man was blind in his left eye after a chemical burn, but now his vision is clear enough to drive. Amazing. I'm Veronica Cruz. Thank you so much for joining us. For the audience leaving us right now, your local programming is up next. And don't forget to check us out online at scripsnews.com. If you're staying with us, we have much more news headed your way right now on Scripps News Live. We'll be right back.
There's a new victim of identity theft every 3 seconds. And checking your credit score or bank statements may not be enough to alert you. That's because identity threats appear in more places than you realize. Identity thieves can use your information to open loans, transfer home titles, even commit crimes.
Someone stole my information and tried to buy a car in my name.
LifeLock monitors for threats to your identity, including ones you may miss, and alerts you if there's an issue. And if you're a victim, your dedicated U.S.-based restoration specialist will work to fix it.
If something happens, you have somebody fighting for you.
All plans backed by LifeLock's $1 Million Protection Package, including reimbursement for stolen funds.
I know LifeLock has me covered.
LifeLock, identity theft protection starts here. Call the number on your screen or visit lifelock.com/25now and use promo code 25now to save 25% on your first year of identity theft protection. Enroll now.
How does Klein & Spector get among the most big verdicts and settlements of any law firm in the country? Because Klein & Spector is an award-winning team with 5 doctor lawyers, the most of any firm in the United States. And that's why the New York Times calls Klein & Spector a powerhouse law firm. So if a defective product, motor vehicle accident, or medical malpractice caused a catastrophic injury, call Klein & Spector.
Let's get you up to date now on some of our top stories. Today, President Biden and the First Lady will get a closer look at the devastation on Maui. They'll be touring what was once the historic town of Lahaina from the air and ground. The president pledging to help with Maui rebuild however he can do so. More than 100 people have died so far, and the majority have not yet been identified. Georgia cannot enforce part of a new law restricting doctors from prescribing hormone therapy to transgender minors. A federal judge granting a preliminary injunction on the law Sunday, weeks after it took effect. Doctors can prescribe puberty-blocking medications, and minors already receiving hormone therapy can continue, but it bans any new patients under the age of 18 from beginning the therapy. And Labor Day weekend is almost here. AAA is saying it's going to be a busy one. Booking data shows domestic bookings for flights, hotels, rental cars, and cruises are all up 4%. It's up more than 40% for international travel. The most popular destinations outside of the United States: Vancouver, Rome, London, Dublin, and Paris, while Seattle, Orlando, Anchorage, New York, and Vegas are topping those domestic bookings. Hey there, welcome to Scripps News Live. Great to see you on a Monday. I'm Veronica Cruz. We begin this hour with former President Donald Trump and 18 other defendants having until Friday to turn themselves in at the Fulton County Jail. The Republican frontrunner expected to surrender either Thursday or Friday. Trump accused of trying to overturn the 2020 presidential election in Georgia. It is his fourth criminal indictment this year. Scripps News political reporter Avjoy Burnett joins us now live from our Atlanta studios, and she has the latest for us. Avjoy, great to see you. I understand there have been some new developments happening at the Fulton County Courthouse. What are you learning so far?
Well, we have a crew there on the scene, and we got video from in front of the Fulton County Courthouse saying that an attorney for the former president, Donald Trump, has entered that courthouse. Now, this is very significant because that means they're talking through the terms of his bond. Remember that all of these 19 co-defendants, including the former president, they have until noon this Friday to show up. They still have to get processed. They still have to get their mugshots taken according to the sheriff and their fingerprints taken. But this is a precursor to what will happen. They have to get those terms of the bond. And we're also learning that some of the other 18 co-defendants, they're getting some action taken care of down there at the Fulton County Courthouse. For example, Kenneth Chesborough, he's also an attorney. We received video of his attorneys entering that Fulton County Courthouse. There is also word about John Eastman. He's yet another attorney who has been indicted in this indictment here in Georgia, and his attorneys have signed a bond for him, a $100,000 bond. The reason why this is significant is if they have their bond conditions worked out before they enter, before noon on Friday, they will not have to spend a significant amount of time in that Rice Street facility. We spoke with a former lieutenant. We have sound from a former lieutenant who worked in the Fulton County facility, and here is what he has to say about the special terms that could be taken in order to accommodate the former president, a very high-profile figure.
Again, for the purposes of safety, it is highly recommended, and I do not speak on behalf of Sheriff Pat Labatt, but just from my own experiences in dealing with dignitaries and high-profile persons who come into jail, it's best to just get those persons booked in as rapidly as possible and get them released, because you don't want the jail to become more of an international theater than it has become here recently.
And this is a notorious facility, the Rice Street facility. People have died in this jail as recently as last week. An investigation is underway for that particular situation. But because now we have a former president who may very likely have to show up at this facility, Veronica, so many people are watching and looking at the conditions. And keep in mind that the Department of Justice, they opened an investigation into the Rice Street jail just last month.
Yeah, it is really interesting, Avjoy, that you should mention that, because it's tricky. A lot of these defendants will be processed on a Friday, and if the terms of their bond aren't worked out, they may be sitting in that jail cell over the weekend. Yes. So it's going to be interesting to see. Avjoy, what do we know about the former president himself? Do we have a timeline yet as to when he's going to turn himself in?
Well, the fact that his attorneys are showing up here today, we may be hearing some additional details about this in the coming days. But we know, just like everybody else, that he has until Friday to show up. This is a very big week in GOP politics. Many of the Republican presidential candidates, they are going to Milwaukee on Wednesday for that first GOP debate. We know that the former president is not going there, but he's very likely watching to see what will happen there on Wednesday. And political experts are saying he may want to have a counter programming on Thursday or perhaps Friday to kind of suck all of the attention away from those candidates and take it all up on Thursday or Friday. So there's a possibility that he'll be showing up here in Atlanta in the latter part of this week. Veronica.
All right, Avajoy Burnett reporting live from Atlanta. Great to see you in studio, Avajoy. Thank you so much. So despite facing 91 charges, 4 separate cases, former President Trump has maintained a commanding lead in the polls. Perhaps that is why he is planning to skip the first Republican presidential debate in Milwaukee on Wednesday. Now, several heavy hitters like former Vice President Mike Pence, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott are all still planning to attend the debate as they try to convince voters that they are the best candidate for the presidency. Joining us now for a look ahead at the GOP debate is congressional correspondent Nathaniel Reed. He's joining us now live from Washington. So, Nate, tell us more about what's happening here and what Trump is saying about skipping the debate. Why is he doing this?
Well, he outlined this on a post on his platform, Truth Social, specifically laying out his reasons for deciding to forego this first Republican debate and even hinted that he might skip future debates moving forward. It was a CBS News poll which showed the former president well in the lead, which appears to have tipped the scales. In that post on Truth Social, the former president saying, quote, "The new CBS poll just out has me leading the field by, quote, legendary numbers." He continues, "The public knows who I am and what a successful presidency I had. I will therefore not be doing the debates." I want to highlight those poll numbers, though, from this CBS News YouGov poll released, this poll was taken after those indictments. The former president in the lead, well in the lead, with 62% of likely Republican primary voters saying that they would support him. Just 16% of Republican primary voters saying that they would support Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Pretty much everyone else there led by Vivek Ramaswamy with 7%. Everyone else in that poll in the single digits. So at this point, former President Trump far and away the leader in these polls, clearly making the decision to sit out, leaving Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to defend his wide second place lead. Of course, it is a lead over the other Republican candidates, but still 16% compared to the former president's 62, really just not adding up.
And Nate, what more can you tell us about this process that the candidates have to go through in order to qualify for this debate? What exactly is the process, and who do we know will be on that debate stage come Wednesday?
Well, let's start with who we know is going to be on that stage. We know that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is going to be there. The former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, will be there as well. Vivek Ramaswamy will be there. Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, will be there. Doug Burnham, the governor of North Dakota, will be there. There's also a number, though, of Republican candidates who've said that they've qualified, but we haven't heard confirmation from the RNC. That includes former Governor Asa Hutchinson, businessman Perry Johnson, and Miami Mayor Francisco Suarez. Now, the RNC has laid out a number of criteria for qualifying for that debate. It includes polling at least 1% in multiple polls, having at least 40,000 unique donors, and of those, at least 200 unique donors per state in over 20 states, signing a pledge to participate in only RNC-sanctioned debates, and signing another pledge to support whoever the eventual nominee is. That last bullet point there has been by far the most contentious among this crowd of Republican candidates, given that people like Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, had held off on signing that pledge, just decided to sign it in order to get on the debate stage. But for a number of other Republican candidates like Asa Hutchinson, it's not exactly clear if they're going to comply with that, given that they are deeply opposed to having former President Trump becoming the nominee, especially with poll numbers like the one you just saw, with 62% of Republican voters saying they would back getting former President Trump as the nominee in 2024.
All right, Nate Reed reporting for us from Washington. Nate, thank you so much. Happening today, the Tennessee General Assembly will kick off a special legislative session. It's focused on public safety, mental health, and the Second Amendment. Tennessee's Governor Bill Lee calling for the special session just hours after the regular session ended, State House and Senate leaders saying they didn't want to rush to discuss any gun legislation. That's after the Covenant school shooting in Nashville during the regular session. Governor Lee tried to push a red flag law package through, but no Republicans would sponsor it. 3 Democratic lawmakers protested the lack of action on gun legislation. 2 of them were expelled, but then later reelected to their seats. One of former President Jimmy Carter's grandson says that his grandfather has entered, quote, his final chapter. Josh Carter recently speaking with People magazine. The 98-year-old former president began hospice care in February, and he beat brain cancer in 2015 and then had brain surgery in 2019. His wife, Rosalind, was diagnosed with dementia earlier this year, and her grandson says that she is aware of her condition. The Carters have been married for 77 years. New numbers out suggest that the average working woman's pay is now getting closer to a man's salary. They say women's median workday earnings were 84% of men's pay, and that is the narrowest pay gap ever. Our Megan Lopez takes a closer look at the numbers for us.
The pay gap between women and men in the U.S. is now at an all-time low. That's according to new data out from the U.S. Labor Department. Women now make 84.5 cents for every dollar men earn. That's up 2 cents from last year. Part of the reason for that closing gap is better education, but also the career fields women are now entering at a higher rate, like STEM fields. But while that news may sound promising, Rakesh Kocher from the Pew Research Center says the gender pay gap has more or less stalled out over the past 2 decades. He says your age plays a role, and not in the way you might think.
That younger women are seeing a much narrower pay gap. When women first step into the labor market, they make more than 90 cents to the dollar when compared with men of the same age. But as these women and men age, the gender wage gap increases.
A big reason for that is because more women step out or take a step back in their careers between ages 35 and 44 to take care of their families. The COVID pandemic took a toll on women in the job market for that reason, so much so that it was actually called a she-cession. But things are rebounding, and with low unemployment, employers are offering more to attract talent. So how can women earn more? Well, for that, I spoke with Julia Pollack, the chief economist at ZipRecruiter.
Women are about half as likely to negotiate their offer. But among people who do negotiate their offers, men and women are almost equally likely to get an improvement. About 90% of people who negotiate their offer get some improvement in their offer. So don't leave money on the table. Stand up for yourself.
Some other things you can do: cast a wide net for jobs so you have more than one offer in hand when you're negotiating. Also, do your homework so you know how much your peers in the same position are earning. But Pollack says employers also need to be more transparent about what they're paying, and job sites need to be disclosing this too, since they have more industry data on hand.
Still to come on Scripps News Live, Ukraine's request for fighter jets now being met. How many F-16s are heading to the country in its fight against Russia? Plus, a nurse now convicted of murder learns her fate in a UK courtroom today. The sentence she's now facing after several newborns in her care died. And we would like to hear from you. Give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline. That number's on your screen right now. It's toll free, 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. Again, it's 1-833-472-7477. Feel free to share your comments and your story ideas. We'll be right back.
I was having problems with my legs and my feet.
I suffered a lot of cramps, swelling.
I would dread going up and down steps.
Tingling in my legs due to circulation issues.
The aches and pains have just continued to increase.
Did you know if you have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or are over 40, your leg aches and pains could be from poor circulation? Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps. Revitive uses breakthrough technology to get your calf muscles pumping like a second heart to increase blood flow, reducing leg aches and pains, cramps, or swollen feet and ankles.
Plus, it's drug-free.
The cramping was terrible, and I don't get that anymore. Thank you, Revitive.
Revitive is FDA cleared and clinically proven to increase oxygen-rich blood flow during use. The smart stimulation works so well, over 3 million people use Revitive.
As a firefighter, I'm constantly on my feet. I wish I had known about Revitive a lot earlier. It would have made a huge difference in really who I am today.
Revitive has given me a better quality of life because I am living without pain.
Revitive reduces leg pains 2 times more than exercise alone in just 6 weeks.
We want to take walks. We want to do more social activities, just the typical things in life that I did not feel well enough before Revitive that I was able to do.
Now, Revitive is regenerizing my legs and making me feel like, let's do more.
Go to Revitive.com now to learn how Revitive can help reduce leg aches and pains, swelling, and cramps.
The doctor said, go for it. And I'm in the best shape in terms of my legs and my ankles and my feet than I've ever been.
Try Revitive. You will see the difference. It works. It worked for me.
Get the most out of life with Revitive. Visit Revitive.com. That's REVITIVE.com. Or call
1-800-317-6641. That's 1-800-317-6641 today. Or visit Revitive.com. Order now.
This is Marianne's first time visiting Paris.
Où allez-vous?
Before Marianne packed her bags, before she attempted her first sentence in French, she downloaded Babbel. So when it came time to tell the cab driver to take her to the Hotel Pierre,
J'aimerais aller à l'Hôtel Pierre. Oh, c'est très bien.
Babbel focuses on natural conversation, so you can speak and pronounce with confidence.
Language lessons for every summer adventure. Get 55% off for a limited time at Babbel.com/TV.
It's all about putting in the work. I prepare the same way for the long haul. Tono gives you all those stats to be able to say, okay, let's do this now. It's all about just training your mind to be as great as you can. Tono, be your strongest.
Breaking down the headlines.
We're going to take a deeper dive
with up-to-the-minute information, giving you the whole story.
Let's get you caught up on some of today's top stories.
The Debrief, live tonight, starting at 6/5 Central, only on Scripps News.
A neonatal nurse in the UK will spend the rest of her life behind bars after murdering babies in her care. 33-year-old Lucy Letby was convicted last week of killing 7 infants and trying to kill another 6. London correspondent Julia Chapman reports that the nurse was sentenced today to life in prison with no chance of release.
The judge sentencing Letby said she displayed a deep malevolence bordering on sadism. He called her actions a cruel, calculated, and cynical campaign of child murder. The nature of her crimes against the most vulnerable children meant she became only the 4th woman in the UK to be handed a whole life sentence. It's the most severe punishment under British law and means Letby can never be released. Prosecutors outlined how between 2015 and 2016, Letby injected some babies with air, poisoned others with insulin, and force-fed some. Several of the babies who survived were left disabled by her attacks. Letby chose not to be present in court to hear the sentencing or the victim impact statements that informed it. The mother of one murdered baby compared her experience to a horror story after learning her son's killer had watched the family grieve. Letby's refusal to appear on Monday has triggered another discussion in the UK about whether judges should be given the power to compel those convicted of crimes to attend their sentencing. Julia Chapman, Scripps News, London.
Ukraine's urgent plea for F-16 fighter jets now being answered by Denmark, pledging to donate 19 of the U.S.-made jets. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky getting a first-hand look at them during a visit to the country. The Scandinavian nation and the Netherlands are sending several jets to Ukraine. They aren't expected to be deployed for at least the next month. President Zelensky says they'll help his country regain control of the skies. Speaking in Denmark, President Zelensky warned that Ukraine isn't the only country at risk if Russia wins the war.
Russia's neighbors are under threat if Ukraine does not prevail. International law will not be resuscitated. Democracies of the world, each of them can become a target, either for missiles or for mercenaries or for destabilization, and I'm sure you can feel it. But Ukraine will prevail.
Now, in addition to the F-16 jets, the Dutch and Danish governments are working to train Ukrainian pilots on flying those planes. Now to Canada, British Columbia declaring a state of emergency. More than 35,000 people have been evacuated from the Canadian province amid raging wildfires there. Now the country is sending in military troops to slow further spreading. And so far, wildfires have scorched about 54,000 square miles of land across Canada, and that is roughly the size of New York. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, we'll meet a Dallas chiropractor who refuses to let statistics shape her future.
In my mind that brought me to think that I couldn't make it, putting in the work.
How she is managing to crack the code for creating a successful business. We're going to take a look at her plans to help others. And we'd like to remind you to give us a follow at Scripps News on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and on Threads. We'll be right back.
Hey.
Hey, I'm inside the bank. Where's the $500?
What?
I don't have much time. Where's the $500?
I said drop your bank, not rob your bank.
What?
I said drop your bank and get Dave, the banking app.
Yeah, I thought this was a lot of work for $500.
You think?
I mean, I would love it if you could come get me.
Oh, no. Oh, she going to jail.
Hello?
There's an easier way you can get up to $500 in 5 minutes or less when you download Dave.
We need some help.
I know. I'm going to CashNetUSA.com. And if approved, we can have the money in our account as soon as the same business day.
Go to CashNetUSA.com to apply for the money you need.
Attention all seniors. You can now get up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, including your credit card debt, with no medical exam, starting at less than $1 a day.
Oh, honey. Your dad and I can't stop talking about this baby that's coming.
We've also been thinking a lot about our future. And no matter what, we want to make sure we aren't leaving you and your family with any of our debts.
Just last week, we read that the price of a funeral can be $8,000 or more.
Wow. Jeff and I definitely would not have the money to pay for that.
And that's just a funeral. But you don't have to worry. We called, and with one phone call, we were eligible for $50,000 for our funeral and final expenses.
Well, that's great, but don't you need to take a medical exam to qualify? You and Mom have some health issues.
No, there's no medical exam, and we were able to get coverage right over the phone.
And our rates can never be increased, our benefits can never be decreased, and our coverage can never be canceled.
I'm so glad you made that call.
Don't leave loved ones with your debt. Call 800-339-7996 now and see if you qualify for up to $50,000 for your funeral and other final expenses, starting at less than $1 a day. There's no medical exam, and you can be approved even if you have pre-existing health conditions. Your rates can never be increased, your benefits can never be decreased, and your coverage can never be canceled. There's no obligation. Call 800-339-7996 now. There's no paperwork, no hidden fees, and no waiting periods. And you can start coverage right over the phone, starting at less than $1 a day. Call 800-339-7996. That's 800-339-7996. 800-339-7996.
Do you have an idea for a story you would like to see or a comment on our coverage you want to share? We want to hear from you. Call our Scripps News viewer hotline at 833-4-SCRIPPS. That's 833-4-SCRIPPS.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica Cruz. Scripps News continues to highlight Black Business Month, and this afternoon we're focusing on a doctor who's beaten the odds in an industry that rarely sees people of color. National correspondent Jamal Andres pays this doctor a visit.
I'm going to start with a little bit of soft tissue.
Her patients say she makes magic with her hands.
It helps me to be able to move and walk again. She's been a lifesaver for me.
After 20 years of hospital work, Dr. Tamia Guest set her sights on chiropractic care. As a Black entrepreneur, she has beat the odds, growing her business with now 2 locations in the Dallas area.
So I already kind of had a feel for how the medical field works, work with many doctors, nurses, and patients. People felt like they could trust me.
Trust being somewhat hard to come by for Black Americans looking for health care. A Kaiser poll found only 6 in 10 Black adults trust doctors to do what is right most of the time. That's compared to 8 in 10 white adults.
She seemed to take more time out and show more care more so than her pockets.
So I'm gonna have you look over here, and then I'm gonna kind of tell you a little bit about how the body works.
Guest is part of the less than 2.5% of Black chiropractors in the industry.
Many clients do specify that they would like to see a Black provider.
Guest says she opened her first location right after college with savings and support from family. But the most difficult obstacle was getting her first base of clients in the door.
I'm very shy and an introvert. You can be a good adjuster as far as chiropractic and wellness, but you're going to have to be able to get people in the door, because those things really don't matter if you can't get people in the door.
Nationally, Black-owned businesses are still rare, and long-standing profitable ones are even less common. While a third of businesses overall close within the first 2 years, 8 out of 10 Black-owned businesses close within the first 18 months.
There's nothing in my mind that brought me to think that I couldn't make it, putting in the work.
Since Rejuvenating Chiropractic opened its doors in 2013, it's grown to serve nearly 200 clients a week and opened a second location.
I believe that many of them have stayed with me because I make them feel like family.
And family brings family, like Curtis Weems and his son Amir.
I was kind of nervous because, I know, popping all those bones is, kind of scary.
The trust that I have in her, I bring my sons, several of the football guys come. I have other coaches that come see her now.
I play DB, so, you have to have really good hips. And, her working on my hips really helped a lot.
After 10 years of owning her own business, Guest says she hopes to usher in the next generation of not only chiropractors, but business owners.
I wish I could say it was easy, but you have to really have the discipline and energy to want to work for yourself. I'm really excited for the next 10 years, doing different things that I want to do, and hopefully helping pull other doctors up and train them on how to be, a good chiropractor and, build up their community.
Jamal Andrus, Scripps News, Dallas.
Good for her. Well, get this. An Ohio couple that share a birthday recently welcomed twins on their birthday. The happy parents, Sierra Blair and Jose Irvin Jr., found out that they shared a birthday on their first date. And now, more than a year later, they are the proud parents of a boy and a girl, also born on August 18th. Arya and Jose III weren't due until August 28th, which surprised mom and dad. Now this new family of 4 is figuring out how to celebrate all 4 birthdays together. Leo's role. Big congratulations. I'm Veronica.